How's everybody doing? Yay! And now that Monday has you warmed up with the yes, just say yes to everything we're about to say to you. Just agree with us. Because talking on weird, that's been a weird one. Like the definition of weird, as you guys probably know, is hugely different just among all of our brains here in this room.
I see a lot of weirdos already.
Yeah, I'm kind of speaking to the choir here,
yeah.
But I knew I wouldn't know, or we wouldn't know a lot of you guys in the room, so we thought we would start a little bit by telling you about who we are, how we met, and a little bit about what we do, which is Lauzon. So let me get started with that. So there we go. We met because Jim was a dentist and I have severe tooth decay. No, that's not true.
No, actually, playing doctor gets boring. So we're like, let's play dental.
Let's play dentist. No, none of that's true. That's weird. That's too weird. He is the weird one for sure. No, we met about 16 years ago. We were introduced by a mutual friend who said, you two just have to meet. We were living in New Orleans, and so she arranged for a group of us to attend an adult circus, the Bindlestiff Family Circus. Anybody familiar with them? Yeah,
they rock.
Couple in the back. They're amazing. So a lot of us showed up in costume. Coincidentally, Jim showed up dressed as a cat, and I as a lion tamer. So
I was a male cat, if anybody cares.
A male cat. So a few days after that, we went on our first date, which wound up at this trashy beach in Biloxi, where we kind of essentially played with trash on the beach for a few hours, having a blast together. Jim actually made a pair of sandals for me out of a Budweiser box that was on the beach. And we had such a nice time. The next day, he delivered a watermelon to my front porch and with a sticky note on it that said, "Thanks for such a great first date." So I promptly brought the watermelon in, carved it into a fruit basket, filled it with fruit, and delivered it to him at work. He worked at a restaurant down the French Quarter. Later on that evening, and I attended bar in the Quarter. Later on that evening, a gorilla showed up at my bar and slammed a suitcase full of bananas down on the bar. This guy.
It was $68 worth.
He really liked me. So I turned some of those bananas into cocktails and then made about 10 loaves of banana bread. And so, as you see, the beginning of our relationship was not that traditional. A few months later, we were traveling around the U.S. in this Volkswagen camper with a rocket strapped to the back and smoke canisters. And we would light the smoke canister any moment we felt like we could create a dramatic entrance or exit. So like this, for example, we're parked somewhere and there might have been one family sitting at a campsite, you know, cooking dinner, and we were like, they're gonna love this. And we light a blue smoke bomb and putter away on the camper. One thing that we did that we laughed so much about is we were meeting our friend out and picked him up in Reno because we were going to Burning Man together. That was part of this 3-month journey we were on, and we picked him up at the airport in Reno in this with a lit smoke bomb in the back, just pulled up into the airport, loaded him up, and took off. No word from security. Those were the good old days. You know? So another thing I'll just mention, and some people in the room may have been there, our wedding, which we wound up getting married, how long ago?
I don't know. But it was the 2nd of October.
Or was it the 5th? Oh. We never remember. It might have been like 12 years ago. Yeah, Bob Seven in the back corner, he was there.
Yeah.
But our wedding was a game show. And it was like the Bachelor show. Jim was looking for a bride, so all my bridesmaids came up and would try him out, and none of them worked for him. And I actually wasn't even up here. I was sitting in the audience with my father, who the whole time was heckling, going, "I got your bride right here. I got your bride right here." And so my dad walking me down the aisle was dragging me. I was going, "No, I don't want to get married," and dragging me up. And so then we made our family drive hundreds of miles to that wedding. So. And some of them left immediately after. But so we've had some fun over the years for sure. And again, I don't think we realize some of the things we do that are a little not the norm at all, because they're just kind of what we have fun doing. So let me talk a little bit about how we started Lauzon. We started, whoops, there's Liv. That's our daughter. She looks a little more like this. But we moved to Asheville 13 years ago when she was 6 months old. A lot of people say, "Did you move to Asheville after Hurricane Katrina?" We say, "No, we moved after Hurricane Liv." So she was 6 months old when we moved here. And she's been a part of us starting the business from the beginning. So we started about 10 years ago. Jim and I were the main performers on the bus the first few years. And this is sort of an image from where we started. When we started, we just had the city comedy tour. Now that we are 10 years into it, we've got all of these amazing people working with us. And there's Mundy right there with different teeth on. And we have a city comedy tour, an adult-only haunted comedy tour, a kids comedy tour, and a band and beer tour. On our comedy tours, if you haven't been on the bus before, it's a two-person show. There's one costume tour guide that stays on the bus and another one that scoots around town, showing up in a variety of costumes. We're actually sharing Asheville history, factual stories. Kevin over here is a good Asheville historian. He helps keep us on track. Like, nah, it wasn't quite like that. But so we have fun. We just completely twist it all up and try to keep the facts as straight as we can, as long as it's funny. And so that's what we do on our city comedy tour, haunted comedy tour, and kids comedy tour. And our band and beer, which here's an image from, that's a city tour image. Beer man right there. It's our beer superhero. And our band and beer tour, it's primarily a brewery shuttle. We go to the Altamont brewery, to Highland, and to the Wedge. And it's a 3-hour experience. We depart from the South Slope. Folks can bring beer and wine on the bus on any of our tours. But this one's really fun because we work with some super awesome local bands like Pleasure Chest, Lyric, Andrew Scotchy and the River Rats, just all kinds of great local bands, and they play in between stops. So we take kind of the scenic route from brewery to brewery, and you're getting this amazing live music experience. So that's kind of what we do with Lauzon. So Jim's the weird one, so we'll let him start talking about weird. Do you have your own clicker?
I do, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, we're absolutely honored. Thank you so much for choosing us to be a part of the very first Creative Morning. I just feel like we're with kindred spirits here. It's interesting, weird. Like God, it's been an interesting month of digging through and figuring out exactly what weird is, because it's just so subjective. I mean, will you guys holler out a few things that you think is weird?
Gold teeth.
Gold teeth, good one.
Anything else?
Oh. Very weird, yeah.
Football.
Very weird.
Football. Say? Eggplant.
Well, here's some things that I think other people might find weird. That's not how I dressed as a cat, by the way.
That was him.
And then there's things that people that embrace the weird. People are terrified of the weird.
Raise your hand if this scares you. See? It's scary to some.
But fortunately in Asheville, I feel like we all have a strong sense, not everybody, but a lot of people, that we want to keep Asheville weird. And so we're going to touch on a few things today. So with all the differing opinions of what's weird or what's good or bad, we're going to explore the history of it. We're going to explore the struggle to be weird, to break out of the norm, and also what it's like to be weird, of course.
Yeah, and the benefits of it. Heck yeah. So let's take a start, the very predictable beginning. Let's look at the definition of the word weird, which we found to be very interesting, involving or suggesting the supernatural. That doesn't really come to mind to me necessarily when I think of weird. Unearthly or uncanny, fantastic, bizarre, that's more along the lines of what I would typically think of, but also concerned with or controlling fate or destiny. Interesting. And as a noun, weird, actually Old English spelling was with a Y here, and it actually translates directly to fate or destiny.
That's where I come in.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Fate or the Weird sisters? Anybody? Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're originally from Greek mythology, and they're also characters in Shakespeare's Macbeth. There were 3 sisters who were goddesses, and they were the white-robed incarnations of destiny. Now, some of you might think Destiny's Child, where Beyonce got her start. Not that at all. It's a very different era. But what they did is they controlled the thread of life from birth to death. So these sisters, 3 days after a human was born, would come to a house. And the first sister, she would spin out thread.
The thread of
Jen's
life.
Demonstrating.
Spin out the thread of life.
And then the second one would make a choice and just snip. And then that was your fate. That's how long your life was going to be. So it's pretty weird. And the third sister, what do you think she was doing?
Probably standing in the background, wringing her hands, singing, "Say my name, say my name." She was the lesser of the weird at the time, I would say.
Yeah. So it seems that the original definition of word weird referred to someone with so much power that it scared the hell out of people. Therefore, the connotation was very negative and dark. Imagine being thought of someone so powerful that they could do that. It's pretty wild.
Right.
Here's a picture of me as a man witch. I just thought you'd like to see that.
All right, so I grew up in a very small farming community in the Midwest, Carthage, Illinois. You can see the cornfield right behind it. There are cornfields everywhere in that town. And an interesting story from Carthage's history that has always been interesting to me is that in 1839, Joseph Smith, the leader of Mormonism, he wrote the Book of Mormon, the leader of the Latter-day Saints movement, moved his congregation to Nauvoo, Illinois, which was a town about 15 miles from Carthage. And within, immediately, the locals were just raising hell because he was a polygamist. He was considering himself a prophet. He was actually running for president. Within a few years, he wound up imprisoned in the Carthage jail, and some angry local mob lynched him while he was in jail. And again, he may have posed a threat to the local people. He was running for president and with all of these bizarre beliefs, but they lynched him. So back then, that was only 150 years ago that someone in a small town in Illinois lynched for being thought of as weird. So fast forward 150 years to when I was growing up in this town, and I recall anybody calling you weird. It wasn't just oh, that's weird, keep Asheville weird. It was more like this. That is weird. Pitchfork and torch. I remember leaving for college and coming home with a friend that was maybe alternative looking a little bit, or when I got my hair cut short, I used to have the long hair with the big bangs, and when I got it cut short, it was like Joseph Smith style. Everybody was like, what's up with her? What's with these weird friends she's bringing home from the city? So I just pointing out that we have a tendency to sometimes have the same reaction to something that's different or weird, even if it's something that's big that may be causing us threat, that may cause us harm, a serial killer, a gunman, someone considering himself a prophet and running for president, or someone, or someone getting a new haircut, or something that's just different, or a different race or a different group of people. So that's just a point that I found interesting, or we found interesting in our research. So
it ties right in with the negativity bias. Have y'all heard of that? The psychological phenomenon. Look, I get to read words for free. The psychological phenomenon by which humans pay more attention and give more weight to negative rather than positive experiences. Blah, blah, blah. You can read the rest. But so it's pretty interesting, isn't it, how it all plays in. We can thank our ancestors for this first quality. Because it used to be necessity. Thousands of years ago, it was important for a person to remember to learn from all of their negative stimuli to keep themselves safe, so you're not eating the wrong bushes or patting the wrong kitty or anything like that. However, nowadays, when our everyday interactions don't affect our survival directly, it kind of just turns into an evolved negativity bias. And we just might be stifling our own creativity and our own, growing from that. So, oh yeah, I like this picture. Not to mention perpetrating racism or any other type of prejudice and causing ourselves undue stress and anxiety. The same goes with characteristics of ourselves that might cause a negative response from others. And so what I'm trying to say here is that we have trained ourselves for thousands of years to be afraid of breaking away from the pack, and then also to be real suspicious of anybody that does.
Mm-hmm. So another character trait of our society that I find interesting and that sort of works against being weird or breaking the norms is the idea of striving. Contentment isn't so much the norm anymore. I remember sitting with my grandmother and just how peaceful and still of a person she was. She loved to sit with us in the afternoon, and she'd have a cup of coffee and a piece of pie, and we would just sit and chat. And I may be like that in 20 years. It's just hard to imagine shifting from who I am right now to turning into that. But
I like
so,
who you are.
you like who I am? Good. I keep the house clean. I work hard. So contentment, we do strive for contentment, but I know. That's my dog. I taught him to meditate. I don't meditate, but I taught my dog to. But as most of us know, when we get up from the meditation pillow or the yoga mat, we're pretty much right back to our neck break speed. So in that environment too, I think it's easy to siphon out the unnecessary, the frivolous, the fun, the weird, only leaving space for the things that we see directly affecting our trajectory upward or forward.
Yeah. So what's wrong with everyone being the same? What's wrong with all valued actions being ones that result in more gain or bigger profits? What do you think we sacrifice when we choose to be mundane? Art, love, new discoveries, breakthroughs, feelings of actually being alive. Like, I just got goosebumps, but let's see. Yep, here's some Asheville Buskers. Mm-hmm. This is our bus in the backyard when we first started painting it. I would say that our business, Lauzon, which truly started as a figment of our own imagination, was born at a time when we were fiercely embracing, we were, 13 years younger, but we were just fiercely embracing the weird and just feeling its power. And we wanted to share it with people. I love this picture too. People have always asked us if we were scared during that process, and absolutely, we were terrified. But we were never scared enough to stop. We remember specifically going to the chamber for the first time and asking them very nervously, like, are you sure you guys would accept this or whatever, and it's not too weird or whatever. And they were like, come on, bring it on, But it's interesting that we felt like we had to prove ourselves. We really thought that we'd be shunned by the entire city for doing something that was really original. And so we made many mistakes along the way. A lot of you creative people are going to just love this. Look at our first brochure. It was more like we were trying to get people to not come. It's so funny. Our first years were brutal. We'd run out of material to say during the tours, and if any of you were on the bus, we should have made T-shirts, but we'd be like, just look around. Isn't it beautiful here? And then we'd just like, keep looking. And then we were so busy, and we had so many jobs just to support this hobby of ours at the time. But our daughter, we couldn't afford a babysitter a lot of times, so she'd be right up in the front. Either we'd be kicking her because she'd be falling asleep. And granted, there would only be like 4 or 5 people in there. Other times she'd be like leaning back. She'd be like, my dad's going to come around the corner in a minute dressed like a nun and eat fire. But people loved it, you know. And when it was over, we'd wipe off our makeup and race to our other jobs. I felt like a lot of the town was just kind of watching us and like scratching their heads. Anoop, I was working at Mela at the time, and I'd always ask him business advice, and I'd ask the most basic things, and he'd be like, oh, Jimmy, what are you doing?
Yeah, I remember a conversation early on. He said, Anoop, what's a press release?
Yeah, but we kept pushing, and we kept learning, and it was like going back to college. Watching weird happen from a safe distance can be really funny, and here's where I'm just going into a little rant. Kind of like going to the circus. Like weird is fun when it's safe, you know, or whatever. So in high school, I discovered that I was weird because people were calling me a geek and all kinds of other things. But I just love to make people laugh, and so believe it or not, my counselor in high school, the student counselor, she was repeatedly telling me as I was, you know, in senior year that I should join, because I was saying I didn't want to go to college, and she was saying, you need to join the Joeys and be a part of the circus. And I was like, are you serious? And I felt something strong at that point, and I remember telling her a couple of times that I feel like they're just clowns can be everywhere. They don't need to be inside like just a couple tents, you know? And what little did she know, she was setting me up for myself. I lost my virginity to a clown named Tickles. It's a true story. But so who knows what was going on. But anyways, my family used to just shake their heads and they'd be like, what the hell is going on with Jimmy? Like, what's he gonna do? Where's he gonna go? They were worried about me. And it's interesting, my last name is Lauzon, and that's why we call this Lazoom, because I just really wanted to stamp my name on it and be like, I'm doing this.
And I want to say one more thing just about that. Jim's vision.
About Tickles?
No, not about Tickles. I can talk about that later. But about Jim's
Get in the chair,
dream.
the dentist chair. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
About your dream always being that you wanted to be the guy that when, you know, somebody's sitting in the barber's chair getting their hair cut, or the dentist chair, or whatever the fantasy was, and you know, some character goes by on the street by the window and it makes the whole shop go, what the hell was that? You know, some guy in a squirrel costume rolling a nut or something. I don't know, something ridiculous, and just to make people break out of their mundane reality. And so truly that dream, which was a fantasy of yours from high school on, I think kind of in the back there tinkling around, you've made it a reality. So that's cool.
Going back to Jen's hometown, like her dad, you know, just straight-laced businessman running a restaurant. He just could never believe any of our antics. And he always was a little bit like, who is this kid? You know, because she was homecoming queen, or, you know, whatever. He expected he expected different things from her.
Got a slide of that.
He expected so many different things, or a better suitor. And so it was interesting when we'd be in the backyard when we'd go back to visit, and we'd be doing practicing circus tricks or working forever on like a silly puppet show or just crazy things. And one of his favorite things to say nowadays is, he smokes, if I had $5 for every time, oh, thank you for cueing the $5 bill. If I had $5 for every time I told you kids you were or told my friends or you guys that you were just wasting your time on this business, I'd be a rich guy right now. But what?
Unfortunately for him, it was our idea, not his.
Yeah, I think that's all that I got, but...
I have something.
What?
Okay, I'm going to talk about, so for us, weirdness was expressed creatively through Lauzon. But just stepping back a moment, it used to be thought in the days of ancient Greece and Rome that creativity was just a demon or a force that came sort of from the universe through people that were attuned to channeling it. And so much of the pressure was not on the individual who was being weird or being creative or, you know, the musician or the artist or whatever. It was funneled from the universe. And I'll tell you, if we could have said that about this speech, it would have been a lot easier. Like, hey, it's what the universe gave us. Sorry if it was shitty. But instead, all the pressure is on us. So the last few days we've been like, okay, you say this, and I'll say this, and I'll write this down. So it is so much pressure to be creative because we're so egocentric these days that all the pressure is on the creator. So I just want to say that, you know, with that pressure, along with negativity bias and the culture of striving in, you know, the U.S. or the world that's prevalent today, being yourself is hard enough, let alone being weird. And so we honor all of you creatives for being creative.
Yeah,
and
give it up for
continuing.
yourself.
Yeah, no kidding. Yep. And the good news is, whoops, what happened? Oh, I went the wrong way. The good news is we are in Asheville, and where the idea of a risque vaudeville-style tour led by a couple of clowns was supported, and where independent business and craft are supported. Y'all know that, you know, and as the creative community of Asheville, let's not forget that we are supported here and that we are encouraged to be ourselves and be unique and not just follow the same straight and narrow path. So the other good news is that the Urban Dictionary definition of weird, which is the more modern definition, is just interesting or strange. And it says, as in, that's weird. So that's cool. The definition of weird is just much lighter these years. So we hope this brief exploration of weird inspires you to be fully yourself, to be creative, to be original, and to be weird, to continue to do those things, because I know most of you, all of you are doing it to this day. So to end on, we found this awesome and inspiring list of 10 reasons to embrace your inner weirdness from the website The Mind Unleashed. There's no such thing as normal. I was talking to Tim about that this morning. Everyone's weird, therefore nobody's weird. So personality exists on a spectrum. So don't worry about being normal. Just find your natural.
Yeah. What you think is weird is really your superpower.
Oops.
Oops.
There we go.
Ta-da! That is not me.
It's Jim 20 years ago. What makes you weird makes you memorable. People won't remember the thing that you did that everybody else does, but they will remember.
That's the scooter god.
They will remember the thing you did that only you can do. That is actually a position in Lauzon. That's the scooter god. So we have one person that takes care of all the scooters, and that's it.
The world needs more authenticity. When you live as your true self, weirdness and all, you're giving those around you permission to do the same.
All great art was made by weird people. Innovation does not happen within the status quo. Innovation happens when outsiders challenge the status quo with weird ideas.
Resisting your weirdness makes you dark. When we hide our unique characteristics and resist our natural weirdness, we don't feel good. We feel bad. There will always be people who do not understand or appreciate our differences, and that's okay. Screw them.
That's right. Yep. Standing out is how you find your tribe. Many people follow crowds because they don't want to be lonely, but standing out will not make you lonely. That's when you'll find your tribe. Breaking away from the crowd you'll find others like you. You'll find those who have stood up before you, and you will serve as inspiration for those who will stand up next.
Every new idea is weird at first. Even the best ideas, when they're first introduced, seem weird. A new idea is like a biological mutation. At first, it doesn't make sense, but eventually, the biological mutation finds a purpose. Ideas are the evolution that pushes society forward.
If you hide your truth, you might regret it. Nobody looks back on life and thinks, I wish I had tried harder to be like everybody else. But if you spend your life trying to be like others instead of the best version of yourself, chances are you will look back with regret and think, I wish I had lived without the fear of being judged or misunderstood.
When you own who you are, the world will conform. Would you rather bend your focus to fit the world around you, or bend the world around you with the power of your focus? And we only have 90 more of these.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oops, actually,
Look at that.
that's Bob 7.
Yeah.
Actually, we just have a couple more slides. Sorry, we're going to make you all applaud again in a second. We had a couple more slides that we just couldn't bear to not show. This is Bob 7. He's actually standing back in the corner of the room. And he is just an awesome local folk artist and weird, wonderful inspiration to us. And this is an image of our cousin, or our niece Kylie. We went home to my hometown Carthage and were bored one evening and said, let's have a zombie photo shoot. And the kids loved it, and we just had a blast. And the pictures wound up on Facebook, and you should have seen all the comments from my sister's friends like, what are they doing? That's so weird. But it was a blast, and we were proud of it. So stay weird, you guys.
Yay!